Have you ever really stopped to think about why you make the choices you do? You know, why you buy one thing but not another? Well, it turns out there's a hidden science behind all our decisions, and today we're going to dive deep into it. It's called economic utility. To get what I mean, just think about pizza. Picture it. That first slice when you're absolutely starving, it's just perfect, right? Pure bliss. The second one is still awesome. The third? Yeah, it's pretty good. But by the time you're staring down that fifth slice, it feels more like a challenge than a treat. There's a very real economic reason for that, and once you get it, you'll see it everywhere. So the official answer to our pizza problem is a concept called utility. Now, in economics, utility isn't about how useful something is in the normal sense. It's much simpler. It's just a measure of the satisfaction, the happiness, the enjoyment you get from something. You can think of it as the want-satisfying power of any good or service. So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to nail down what utility really is. Then, we'll get into how economists actually measure it. After that, we'll uncover the big rule that governs it all, and even check out a few places where that rule seems to bend. And finally, we'll connect the dots back to how you decide what to buy every single day. Okay, first things first. What exactly is utility? Before we start throwing numbers around, we've got to understand its basic features. And trust me, it's got a few quirks that might surprise you. To start, utility is totally relative. Its value completely depends on the situation. I mean, a big, warm winter coat has a ton of utility when it's freezing outside, right? But that same exact coat has pretty much zero utility if you're on a tropical beach in the middle of summer. The object doesn't change, but its power to satisfy your wants changes completely with time and place. And on top of that, utility is completely subjective. It's a psychological thing, which means it's different for every single one of us. A doctor gets a huge amount of utility from a stethoscope. It's a critical tool for their job. But for you or me, it's probably just a weird-looking necklace. Satisfaction is really in the eye of the beholder. Now, this next point is really important to grasp. Utility is ethically neutral. What that means is that economics doesn't judge why you want something. A knife has utility because it satisfies a want. It doesn't matter if that want is to slice up an apple for a healthy snack or something much, much worse. The concept itself is morally colorless. It just measures want satisfaction, period. All right, let's run through a couple more key ideas real quick. Utility is not the same thing as usefulness. For example, liquor can have high utility for an addict, but you'd be hard-pressed to call it useful compared to, say, milk. It's also different from pure pleasure. Think about a painful injection that saves your life. Not pleasurable at all, but its utility is off the charts. And at the end of the day, this whole drive to get utility, that's the engine behind all economic demand. It's why we want things in the first place. Okay, so now we have a handle on what utility is. Let's get into the two most important ways economists think about it and measure it. We're talking about total utility and marginal utility. The difference here is super simple, but it's absolutely crucial. Total utility is the grand total of satisfaction you get from everything you've consumed. Let's say the happiness from eating 3 whole slices of pizza. It's the big picture. But marginal utility, that's the extra bit of satisfaction you get from consuming just one more unit. It's the satisfaction you get specifically from that 4th slice of pizza and that slice alone. Let's actually look at some numbers here. It'll make it crystal clear. Check out this table. After that first unit, you see both total and marginal utility are at 10. Easy enough. But now look at what happens with the second unit. Your total utility jumps up to 18, but the marginal utility, that extra kick of satisfaction from just that second unit, has already dropped to 8. And as you go down the list, you see the pattern. The total keeps going up for a while, but that marginal value just gets smaller and smaller. And if we plot those numbers on a graph, you can really see the relationship come to life. The total utility curve on top goes up and then starts to flatten out. Meanwhile, the marginal utility curve on the bottom just slopes straight down. And that peak, right where your total satisfaction is at its absolute max, that's called the point of satiety. It's basically the I'm officially full moment, where getting one more gives you 0 extra satisfaction. So this pattern we've just seen, that falling marginal utility, is not just some random thing that happens with pizza. It's one of the most powerful and fundamental laws in all of microeconomics. It is the law that explains our whole pizza problem. The great economist Alfred Marshall phrased it like this. Now, that's a bit of a mouthful, right? Let's translate that into plain English. All it's really saying is this. The more you already have of something, the less you want one more of it. each extra unit is just a little bit less satisfying than the one that came before it. And that, my friends, is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Now, like any law in science, this one has some fine print. For it to work perfectly in theory, economists have to make a few assumptions. They assume we're being rational and trying to maximize our satisfaction. They assume all the units, every slice of pizza, are identical. They assume we consume them one after another without a huge break. And they assume that other things like our income or general mood don't suddenly change. These are kind of the rules of the game. But of course, the real world isn't always so neat and tidy. And like any good rule, this one seems to have a few exceptions. There are some situations where it feels like getting more actually makes you want even more, not less. For instance, what about hobbies? If you're a stamp collector, that rare new stamp might be more exciting than the last one. Or think about a miser hoarding money, or the pursuit of power, or tragically, addictions. But economists tend to argue that these aren't true exceptions because they usually break one of the ground rules. A stamp collector isn't getting identical units, and a person with an addiction isn't acting rationally to maximize their long-term well-being. So, okay, this is all really interesting theory, but what does it mean for you? How does this affect your life? Well, this is the part where we connect that feeling of satisfaction directly to the price tag on a shelf. This is the real-world payoff. To really see this in action, let's pretend we can put a dollar value on our satisfaction. In this table, the market price for this item is set at $50. Now, for that very first unit, our consumer gets what feels like $100 worth of satisfaction. That's a fantastic deal, and a rational person is going to keep buying more as long as the satisfaction they get is higher than, or at least equal to, the price they have to pay. And economists have a name for these great deal units. They're called intramarginal units. It's a fancy term for a simple idea. It's any unit where the happiness you get is worth more than the cash you're giving up. A smart shopper is going to buy these every time. But then eventually, you get to this crucial point, the marginal unit. This is the exact unit where the satisfaction you get is perfectly equal to the price. This is what economists call consumer equilibrium. It's the sweet spot. It's the logical, rational place to stop buying. Because any units you might buy after that point are what we call extra marginal units. And here, the price is now higher than the satisfaction you'd get back. Buying this would be a bad deal. You'd literally be paying more than the happiness is worth to you. So, you hit the brakes. You stop. And this right here brings us to the biggest takeaway of all. This whole process, this entire law of diminishing marginal utility, is the bedrock foundation for the most famous concept in all of economics, the law of demand. The reason we're only willing to buy more of something if the price goes down is because our satisfaction for each new unit also goes down. It's why demand curves pretty much always slope downwards. So, from the next time you're deciding on another slice of pizza to your next big purchase, the law of diminishing marginal utility is right there, working quietly in the background, guiding your choices. Now that you know the logic of satisfaction, how might it change what you decide to buy next?